Record to the cloud. Okay, so we are recording. And so I think we'll go ahead and do a slow start here. We're going to start with introductions on this. We may fumble a little bit just because I've got a strange order of people here, but welcome everybody. This is a review of the eLearning Consortium of Colorado virtual conference that we had a couple weeks ago. I am Kristen Rivedal. I am one of the co-chairs for the conference and also am secretary/treasurer for the eLearning Consortium of Colorado now that we are becoming an official 501(c)(3). Kay, why don't you go ahead and take the reins?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Kay Novak. Right now, I'll call myself co-chair of eLearning Consortium of Colorado until you know, our elections that were delayed by COVID actually happen. And I am from Front Range Community College, and I am an instructional designer there.
Okay, Greg.
Hello, this is Greg Wells. I am an instructional designer at Colorado State University, and I believe I'm co-chair as well for eLCC, and have been a member, gosh, probably almost 10 years now. So, Brandon?
I am Brandon Poliot. I am the only non-chair so far. I am, I guess, the marketing and membership specialist. I don't remember the title we gave me, but for the conference, I was doing a lot of the tech and handling a lot of that. So that was my role, and yeah. I don't know, were we going to have Chris introduce himself or anyone else?
Amy, I think we were going to hit Amy and Chris.
Okay.
Amy, Chris, and Vinny, but let's try Amy Arnold.
Hey, this is Amy Arnold. I am eLCC conference co-chair along with Kristen, and I work for CU Denver. I'm an instructional consultant there. And I've been with eLCC, I've been a member for about 5 years.
Yeah, Vinny and then Chris.
My name is Vinny Ogden. I work at Ames Community College as one of the LMS admin, also admin for Zoom and TechSmith Relay. I've been involved with eLCC probably about 12 years now, and I've worked on tech last few years with Kristen and everyone in Breckenridge, and as well as these Zoom sessions that we did virtual this year.
And I'm Chris Lukes, and I am with CCC Online, and I am the Associate Dean of Career Technology, I should say Career and Technical Education and Mathematics, and I've been with ELK for presenting and helping out here and there, and I'm the current awards chair. So, and also co-host of the morning show. Yay!
Which is a perfect segue. Why don't you guys go ahead and lean in, and I don't want to take too much time away from people being able to ask questions, so we're going to go ahead and we've got a bit of an agenda. We're going to take about 30 minutes to go through our experiences. Please do feel free to pop questions into the chat, but then we also will have a good long time at the end of that for any questions we don't touch on. So, Chris and Kay, why don't you start with the morning show, the icebreaker?
Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen. Let me know, am I sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal. We just decided we do a morning show. Why? Because we like the sitcom Community, and there is a running gag through there about a fake morning show that two of the characters, Abed and Troy, do, and it's a fake show because they never live stream or broadcast it. So we just kind of took it from there. So basically all we did is at the beginning of each day at 8 a.m., what we did was we got onto Zoom and we told people we'd get onto Zoom and do a morning show, and people came. It surprised us, okay? We had 1,014 registrants. That was the last time. That was the last time I looked. That was our number. 120 some people showed up for the first morning show at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, and we were like, "What? What?" We were like, "Oh my God, we actually have to do something now," because we just kind of said we do tech. So by the time Friday rolled around, we said we need like these parameters of what we're doing so that we have things to show people. But basically we just talked, and Chris, jump in, because this is how we talked. We showed that slide, then we said welcome to the morning show, and then we hit the video with the elk bugling. Okay. We did have a lot of people out of who weren't in Colorado, who had never heard an elk bugle before. And something we did not plan on purpose, but if you can even see behind the picture of Chris's background, there's a lot of pictures in the public domain of elks breathing. Okay,
on frosty mornings. Yes.
yes. We did not.
Breath.
We did not plan this, but we ended up with elks in respiratory distress, and we didn't even notice this. But the people kept bringing it up, so it became the morning joke, like running gag that our that our elks had the corona. We had Donna Hall from the University of Colorado Boulder. Donna Hall, if you don't know her, and just go ahead and type Y in the chat if you do know Donna Hall. If you know Donna Hall is a walking weather person, okay? She walks around and she's got all these alerts on her mobile device, and she constantly tells you what the weather that's going to be happening, and she will always let you know if a snowstorm is coming. So we brought her on to do weather every morning. Okay, so she would open up like the drapes from the room that she was in, and she overlooks like a golf course kind of thing. She would show the weather, and she'd talk about the weather. So we had the weather, and then everybody who was from around the world would talk about the weather. Then we'd go like, oh yeah, don't forget, we've recorded yesterday's keynote and it was fantastic. Go ahead and listen to it. Oh,
exactly. And that's kind of the purpose of the morning show. The morning show really was a chance to provide an overview, provide information, and also give chance for attendees who are having technical difficulties or had questions to ask them as well. So we kind of, you can see from the slides, we had it organized by Friday, but we also tried to keep it free flowing to allow for audience members to ask questions, to do technical assistance. So this was kind of that, well, it was a warm up and it was fun, and that was really sort of our main purpose. It was also that support session as well to help people figure out the technology. So we had multiple people on the side as well, many of the same people who are here with us today, who were also watching chat. When people asked questions, they would private message, and they would also help troubleshoot people as if they had audio issues, or if they were like, oh, my camera's not working, they would explain, oh, this session we're not allowing video, but we may allow it in some other sessions. You'll want to check with the moderator. And so we're giving that conference norms, so that conference expectations of interaction in that morning session. So we were sort of giving them that interaction. We're giving them lots of things to look out for, both recapping what happened the day before, plus the other thing was going ahead and giving them updates on what's going on in the day ahead. So we were quickly skimming through things and picking out different pieces, referring them back to the schedule, and reminding them how to get to the links and how to go from there. So that way you can really give them that really good overview when they first get in to know how this conference is going to work. Because this is like we've mentioned, this is the first time we did a virtual conference, and it was a lot of fun doing being the kickoff, because we're just sort of like, okay, let's see how it happens, and really it was a lot of fun. Duration was only an hour, Aaron. So really it was just a real quick session, and I think quite honestly we probably, in most days, we typically ended about 50 minutes, maybe 40 to 50 minutes actual time, because typically we would end about 10 minutes ahead of time to allow times for the presenters to get into the next session. So I'm sure we'll bring this up a little bit later when we talk about scheduling and things lessons learned about things we might want to do different next time. But typically the morning show was about 40 to 50 minutes. in length, and it was really quick. You could probably even do it in 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
thing of
so-
it is,
Oh,
Go ahead, Kay.
does ELK usually have attendees from out of state? Not that many. we had Nigeria. We had a big Canadian. We had a big Canadian. And if I mispronounce this, you guys got, because I'm gonna say Sasquatch, but it's not that. It's Saskatchewan. Okay.
Saskatchewan?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Saskatchewan.
I don't think Canadians would be
There are
offended by
Canadians
saying
on the call. Let's get that right.
Saskatchewan.
Okay. Okay, and the thing of it is, you see how we're being goofy, and if you've ever seen me do a presentation, I can be a lot more serious than this, or if I'm mad, I can be a lot more serious than this, but we just kind of did this. We kind of did the chatty YouTube talky kind of thing, and believe it or not, 50 minutes was not bad. We kept asking people questions. We'd say, go ahead and answer that question, and it worked out. We kept getting almost similar numbers for the 3 days. And again, it astounded us.
So, yeah, I think just to transition so we keep moving on our agenda here, but I think overall lesson learned was that there was great value in having a more social, informal space to start the day. At the end, we did a virtual happy hour. We had a woman it was late in night in Berlin, who was just on having a beverage and painting. But she was on camera and she was there socializing with us. So having that social space, I think, was a really valuable lesson learned. And it doesn't need to be terribly formal. I think having that space where it can be just sort of loose and go with how people need to get set up for the day was great. I think Amy and I can talk now about just the technicality of scheduling sessions, and we used Zoom. eLCC has a Zoom Pro account, but whatever video conferencing tool you use, we had set up meeting after meeting after meeting directly with one account for 3 separate tracks. Lesson learned on that was that it meant that we had to absolutely cut off at the end of 50 minutes past the hour to allow the next session to start so the next presenter could get set up. One of the things I would do next time if I were to do another virtual conference is, instead of using 3 accounts across 3 tracks, is use 6 at least, so you can alternate so that there's more time for the next presenter to get set up. Amy, what else did you find on scheduling on those video sessions?
I mean, that was pretty much it. It was just having to end the meeting exactly on time. Otherwise, you can't run the next session. So, but yeah, spreading it out over several accounts. I think that was the best thing that we could do in the future.
Yeah. And then Brandon and I can talk a little bit about technology. I scheduled a rather informal, our conference started on a Wednesday morning. On Tuesday evening, I scheduled hey, presenters, come and do a tech check, but it was very last minute. I didn't have a huge attendance on it, but I have to say those who did attend it had a lot of nerves calmed. It was something that they found very, very comforting, just to do okay, I know what my lighting looks like. I know how to make sound stop and start, how to make my video stop and start. I know how to share my screen. But I would have announced that sooner if I'd thought of it sooner. Brandon, what about some other technical information?
Yeah, I really think a couple of the big things were, you have it on their meeting settings, making sure everything is the same, making sure we know which settings are going to be the most beneficial. I think we did pretty well at that because we did in one of our meetings go and review all the settings and go, oh, well, this isn't set here. Let's go ahead and turn that on at the admin level. And so I think we did a pretty good job at standardizing those. the one big thing, and I think, you know, everything kind of just came together for us. Better mics and better, I guess, etiquette. I'm doing a bad job. You all get to see my kitchen. Sorry. I don't have a, you know, a nice serene background and all of that, but I have a good camera. I have a good microphone. And those are the kinds of things that I think a lot of people didn't necessarily think about prior to this. I'm hardwired into the network that I'm using. So those are the kinds of things that I think in the future we might say, make sure these are the specs that you have, make sure you're capable of doing this. If you don't know, come to the tech check, please, and maybe have a few more of those sessions for people to come to.
Hey guys,
And
Molly
I
has
think,
a question. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions
Okay.
here. Aaron, first of all, is asking how long did the tech check take? I scheduled an hour and a half. We had a whole bunch of us in all at the same time. Actual trade-off checks and being audience for each other might have been done in 45 minutes, and I stayed in the meeting longer than that. Other folks popped out, but you know, I just stayed in and stayed available. And then Molly, what's your question?
So my question is around the timing of the sessions, because I think that there is wisdom in saying this is kind of its discrete space for this particular topic, this particular presenter, so you don't feel like you have to be rushed in. And maybe this wasn't a concern or an issue at all, but as you know, like movie trailers and people who binge watch, and then the last 20 seconds is like feeding you into the next one. So I'm curious a little bit in terms of the philosophy of, you know, if you have one room, then people kind of seamlessly like log in and then they stay connected. So did that have a way of increasing? Do you know at all like how many people stayed in that same room, session to session to session? Whereas if it were a different
we didn't.
And then you would never see those people again because they would go find the next link and click on it. So just thinking about like continuity of participation and knowing there's a bit of a trade-off in terms of continuity of participation and then discrete space and time for those. And those are kind of at odds, but I think they both, you could make compelling arguments for both. So just wondered if you had any additional insight about that.
Well, what I can say is what we did, which was we did not have one session that lasted all day. We had discrete meeting rooms set up for each session, in part so that the recordings would be discrete recordings automatically. And so every meeting, every presentation had its own Zoom meeting scheduled, rather than having one meeting that was all of a single track. So people had to log out and log back into different meetings. I can see the point of both. We felt that for the recording benefit, and we really did have a number of people who stayed for the whole time, and folks who could, like, I can only be there for the morning and I'll come and review the recordings later. I think in a couple of weeks we're going to be interested to see what our statistics are on views on our recordings, just to see where we're at with that. But I know a number of people who expressed interest in that.
So I think that actually segues nicely into the next. I know Greg's going to start and I'll hand it off real quick. I would say that having one long meeting, I think, would be a moderation nightmare, because it was already difficult to, you never really want to interrupt a presenter and be like, hey, your time's up, you gotta leave. But it was much easier with the way that we set it up, those discrete meetings, to say, hey, our meetings end exactly 10 minutes to the hour. I'll jump in and I'll say, hey, we gotta shut this down so we can start up the next meeting. It gave me a chance to, like you asked, Molly, kind of say, hey, we've got these 3 sessions coming up next. Please join one of them. Here's a link to the schedule. Here's a link to the survey. I really liked how they were chunked out like that. So that's kind of my piece there, is that it gave me an out to be able to jump in and say, we got to go to the next one.
Great insight. Thank you.
Yeah. Greg, do you want to jump in on?
Yeah. So in terms of monitoring the sessions, so I think the committee from the beginning realized the importance of doing some facilitation. And so a couple things I'll say about that, and Brandon's gonna talk about kind of room entry as well. It was an opportunity to meet the presenter and do a brief introduction of the presenter. That was one role that we played as a facilitator. Another one, someone's already mentioned this, is just the time element associated with the presentation. That was something we did as well for me as a lesson learned, is how to better manage that in terms of letting the speaker know, hey, we have 10 minutes left, or we have 5 minutes left. It's time to wrap it up. And I think several of the presenters that I facilitated really appreciated the management of the chat. A lot of questions were put in chat during the presentation. And so we would work with the presenter to basically manage those questions and pause the presentation to answer some of those questions as they went through that. So I'll hand it back to Brandon now, who will talk about kind of the room entry that we set up, as well as preparing for some quote unquote bad actors. Brandon?
Thanks, Greg. So room entry, obviously we have a lobby going on. Anybody who is a co-host or host can admit people. We did have one instance of Zoom bombing. I was in that session. And what we came across, because one of our key points was to, make the presenter a co-host so that they could take over, screen share, all of that kind of thing. And they actually ended up admitting people. And they would see people come in. Of course, you want people at your session. So they would just admit. And that's how we got a lot of people in there. I think there were like 10 different users who were bombing the session. And so I think a lesson learned for me is very much strictly communicating or explicitly communicating the expectations, right? And say, you can focus on your presentation. That's where we want you to put your work and your effort, and we will handle the audience admission and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big one on there. The preparation for removing bad actors. One thing we figured out was not everybody was on the newest Zoom platform. I'm really glad we did some prior to the conference meetings, because we found out that, the security button that is now at the bottom of a host or co-host screen was not there for several of our moderators. And so we said, okay, you're going to have to, go ahead and update, right? And just updating was enough to get that icon. It's pretty easy to identify everyone. So, we could run scenarios, that kind of a thing, but I think we did a really good job, and I do appreciate that the presenter just kind of rolled with it, was on their toes, and just kind of came through, and after the fact provided us with a brand new recording, which was very nice. That was kind of the big
I think in that particular circumstance, and it was 1 out of 48 sessions that we got Zoom bombed in, but it was a perfect storm of allowing everybody who wanted into the room to get in, to including a presenter who had said, yeah, go ahead and let people mute and unmute themselves, which we had pretty much kept locked down in the other presentations, and also had turned on the setting to allow people to share their screens or share their video. And so it was sort of the combination of all three of those. There might have been other people who were attempting Zoom bombs in some of the others, because we had a fair number of iPhone 1 users, although in at least one circumstance that was identified as one of the persons who was logging in from Nigeria, and that was just how they logged in. So, you look for suspect names, but you can't always do it. That's part of why we also just instituted that the moderator had to allow somebody to unmute. We had to do the mute and unmute for folks. You can message people in a waiting room in Zoom, And so if I saw a suspect name that I was really suspicious of, I would send them a message and say, hey, we've got an odd screen name here. Can you tell me who's waiting? And see if they would give me a real name back. You know, just a, and nobody got offended by that. They were just like, oh, this is so-and-so from. So.
The only other thing that I would add, just two real quick things. One of them would be there were requests to allow setup time prior to letting everyone in, so that would need to be a communication of expectations to attendees. Hey, we're not going to let you in till the session's ready to start. The other one would be probably request that people don't tweet out links, because I'm pretty sure you could just go to Twitter and search, you know, zoom.us and find a variety of meetings to just join in Zoom Bomb. Those would be the only two other things that I would share.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and we're going a little long here, not terribly, but let's talk about both the presentation and the recording sharing all at once. Sorry about that, folks. I disconnected my audio, my headphones. Let's have Brandon and Kay talk about the sharing of presentations and recording.
Go ahead, Kay. Everyone just had to listen to me talk for about 5 minutes.
Okay. Actually, we ended up using the Google document that we showed you earlier, and it seems to have worked pretty well, because that one Google document had a link to all our Zoom accounts, and then after that, we went ahead and we put links to the slides up there and then links to the recordings. I will tell you, anytime I go on that Google document, like even now, I see like 5 people on that Google document. I mean, I think, you know, if we were giving awards, you know, awards for the best use of Google documents ever, it would be this. It just worked well. People could, you know, rather than having something static, people could go in and they could find they could share it, because we put the link right on the top. We went ahead and put the links next to the Zoom, and then we took out the links to Zoom, and we now have the links to the recordings. We were careful about who we sent this to, and that's probably why we didn't get a lot of the Zoom bombing. And I think we know that the speaker tweeted out his Zoom link right before he started. We didn't tweet out any Zoom links. We did not, because of what we were hearing. We were careful, and what we did was we sent to communities that we know and communities that we were part of. So we did not do any like big you know, like big thing like everyone come to this in a lot of public spaces. We did our marketing and our advertising to people that we knew, and we also sent out to our representatives several times, asking them if they could then share with their different institutions. So I think we could have gotten more people, but that's fine, because we stuck with the professional development communities. And we did send out a guide on, we sent out a guide on the side each evening that listed who the keynote was, and maybe a little, you know, a little something about some of the sessions. And then I would say it was a lot of targeted marketing. For example, like what's up here, like Jeff Renfro from Colorado Christian University. I know he was presenting on his dissertation material. When I sent it out to my nursing faculty, I let them know that there was someone who was doing a presentation on a global nursing program. So I tailored it for my people, and I also sent out Google documents to the ELK representatives that gave them examples of how I tailored it, and also a written up thing that they could cut and paste and edit, and again, using Google Docs. The thing Now, we're telling you how wonderful everything is, but the one thing that I wish we had done better, and if anybody wants me, I can help out if you're doing this at a different conference. We didn't have a lot of time because of the shutdown, and because everybody who was involved in organizing this had to still do their day jobs, and their day jobs switched from like 50 hours a week to like 75 hours a week. Or I just saw Amy make a face at me. Okay, Amy went to 90 hours a week. Amy was doing Apple time, you know, like Apple programming time. Okay, so because of that, we did not have a lot of extra time. If I had extra time, and if I felt like I could actually, you know, that other people had surplus extra time, we would have done more advertising, and probably I would have looked to have gotten all the people who had done posters to come together for one session. And if somebody can go ahead and put that link in the chat, that would be great. The thing of it is, yeah, Kristen, it was, we had the bones of this ready. But then, you know, like the last minute stuff, almost like a theater production that only happens last minute, that happened during Amy's 90-hour work week. Okay. So
Yeah, I think one of the things that may or may not have been made clear in this presentation, eLCC is an entirely volunteer group. Nobody gets paid. Nobody's full-time employed with us. We're all working full-time jobs at other institutions, and either do this after our workday or with permission of our supervisors during our work days. So this is how a bunch of volunteers get together and make a conference. And so, for example, we use the Google Doc for our scheduling because we and give permissions to who had rights to edit it, and not need to know how to make a web page. Didn't have to have a webmaster involved in making those updates. It was just easier for us to be able to do this and then link to the schedule from our website. And that way, the person who does do our work on our website had one link to put in, and we just kept it updated from there. Just because, again, I want to touch on this and leave enough time for questions. About the only issues we ran into with the recordings are two small-ish issues. Number one, we had not considered that we would have to tell presenters that they were going to be recorded ahead of time. For us, it was just like, oh yeah, I'm doing a web meeting. Of course it's going to be recorded and shared. Well, there was at least one presenter who had not done that and was not comfortable being recorded in the minute. I think if we told her ahead of time and she'd been prepared for it, she would have been fine with it. But in that moment, it was like, no, I'm not comfortable with this. And so we, of course, didn't record that session. And if we had moments of it that were recorded, we removed them. So I would make sure that your presenters know that they're going to be recorded ahead of time, just as a courtesy. And then the other thing that happened was, because we had meetings set up to record automatically, and we started meetings 5 to 10 minutes prior to the actual start of the presentation, all of our recordings currently have about 5 to 10 minutes of not presentation specific material. It's people getting ready, people chit-chatting, you know, presenters going through their own technical setup. And again, just because we are so busy right now, we don't have time to edit the video. And so we've put it out, we've apologized to presenters. When needed, I've gone and grabbed a YouTube link that was time-stamped for, here's when the relevant material starts. And we'll edit them when and if we get a moment. But that's the other thing, is just know whether or not you have the ability to edit that video just by time, not technical skill, even just time. Poster session, we touched on that already. The other thing, lesson learned, we did a lightning round. Brandon, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I had set all 3 15-minute sessions in one 50-minute breakout, so that should have fit, but was not clear in how we communicated that.
Yeah, and it very much was just a technical, how we sent out the acceptance letters, everything like that. I did a mail merge based on a spreadsheet that had all of this information, and it was, you know, a time slot and a session title. When they were provided with their Zoom link, it did have information that they were part of a 15-minute lightning round, but we did not include that originally. So we got some questions around that at the very start, and it was okay. Everyone, you know, again, rolled with the punches and got through their material, shared their presentations. But some of them were not prepared for the fact that it was a 15-minute and not a 50-minute session. So separating those out and making sure that everybody knows, hey, yep, you're doing a 15-minute session. Make sure you've got everything polished and ready to go. That was really the one issue that we had there, and it was minor. And we made sure that all the presenters who were part of that, which we only had 3, were informed and ready to go before we even got the session started.
And I'm jumping in because we're getting ADA questions. Here's what I'm going to say. It's pandemic. And because it's pandemic time, and because we are volunteer, we do not have a person on the committee who could devote themselves to ADA. Would we like that? We'd absolutely like that. If you're doing a conference and you can get someone who can, you know, who can be your compliance person, you know, compliance person would, you know, a compliance person would be great. That the compliance person would be in charge of making, you know, give a little briefing to all the moderators to make sure captioning happens and captioning set up. Also, that person being the person who goes and when they're uploaded to YouTube, if you don't have, if the captioning isn't done, when they're uploaded to YouTube, to turn the captioning on and check them. I will tell you, because of our schedules, it's taken us like 2.5 weeks to even get the recordings up, just because everybody's working so many hours, because like we're all instructional designers, instructional consultants, trainers, LMS people, that we don't have the back end to do all that. Like, for example, this meeting we're having right now, you know, the announcement could have gone out to a lot more people. You know, again, we're totally volunteer. We're not an institution. If you belong to an institution, go to them and say, I need this support, because it would be great to get that support.
So we've got a couple of other eLCC specific things we're going to get to before the end of this session, but this is really the lessons we've learned at this moment in time. Does anybody have questions that we haven't touched on? And you can raise your hand or let me know otherwise in the chat, and we can unmute people. Actually, you know what? I'm looking at who's here. I'm going to allow. Let's see. Allow participants to unmute themselves.
You're taking a big chance there.
I know, but I looked at who's here. I know who's here. So you all do have the ability to unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask a question. Otherwise, yeah. Bill, remember you signed in with your name showing.
Well, one thing I would say is also, I think the people also really like the fact that we added the Q&A sessions immediately following the keynotes. I think that was actually a really good scheduling decision to give folks that wanted to spend a little more time with the keynotes the ability to do that, as opposed to having to cut the keynotes off right away.
It's honestly something we could do in a virtual session that I've never been able to do in a live conference, is really just sit and, hey, I've got an extra hour with a keynote after the end of the keynote to ask questions that came up for me. It's nice to have that luxury. So just before we lose your attention, while we've got an audience, for the academic year 2020-2021, eLCC is going to continue offering a free institutional membership to any new institutions that join eLCC for that first year. Your membership would be free, normally $75. It's still not a killer for an institutional membership, but it would be free. We're also going to create an ongoing free membership for graduate students involved in instructional design or related fields. You know, we're not going to be terribly fussy about it. If you're a grad student, we'd love to have you come and join. And frankly, if you know somebody who's in an undergraduate field that's education or instructional design related, I'm sure we would love to have people involved. And so we would do a free student membership. Kay, why don't you talk about the journal?
Okay, we published the journal. We have one issue out. Please use it. It is, the first issue really is about fake news and how to teach fake news and how fake news, you know, is not great, things like that. Please use these issues and download them. They're PDF, they're open access, so you can link to these things if you put them in a syllabus, in your online course, whatever. It's open access, okay? And we really have to thank the University of Denver, because we are using their digital commons to go ahead and be able to do this. The first edition is out. The first edition is out. We've been slightly delayed on the second issue because, you know, reasons. Yeah. So
pandemic reasons?
Pandemic reasons. Okay. The apocalypse happened, all right? And we always said that the apocalypse was beyond the scope of our planning. It is no longer beyond the scope of our planning, okay? Right now, and we have it open until May 15th. If you need till May 30th or something like that, we'll take submissions. Just contact us. We're doing it on smart cities. We know that some of the smart city sessions from our conference, we will be putting into the journal. What I was going to say, we always do book reviews. And we have a whole list of books related to educational technology, online learning, and technology. If you would like to review one of those books, we would love to have you. And, you know, if you'd like to get involved with us in any way, please do. We anticipate that our upcoming issues will involve something about, you know, COVID-19 and remote learning. But that's what we have for now.
Looks like Aaron has a question. So
sorry, yes. Thanks, Chris. So I just wanted to voice the question that I posted in the chat earlier. Mm-hmm. I'm part of the Wyoming WIDEC group. Mm-hmm. We're planning on hosting our Innovations in Learning conference this fall as virtual. We're planning ahead now for that, you know, situation. And so one of our ideas revolved around having presenters pre-record their session, provide that as a video link, so that when people came to the session was more about Q&A than it was about you know, the presentation itself. And so I wasn't sure if the answers that came up in chat were partially around that. You know, did that happen for you guys at all?
Yeah, and I think Brandon answered it, and he is absolutely right. The one that we had like that was our Friday keynote, and they put the video up ahead of time. They put the video up ahead of time. We started marketing it I sent it out a week ahead to anybody who had registered and on the different listservs. So they had a week of people watching the videos and then giving them responses. And they did incorporate, you know, the responses that they got on their YouTube videos into their presentations.
Yeah, they also requested commentary in the comments for the YouTube videos as well. And so the keynote presenters went ahead and actually called through the comments and used them in a session as well. And
I'll tell you something. We've left everything up on our site from the conference, and we're leaving it up there. It's not that we're not updating. And also, it's a good excuse for us not to update it at the moment. But we've been getting a lot of people who have been emailing us and asking us questions and stuff like that. Feel free to use whatever verbiage or anything else you need. If there's a form that worked, you know, and we used a Google form, make a copy of it, adjust it. We're leaving it all open. Again, because of the pandemic hitting, there are tracks and different types of sessions. We would have liked to try more, and that kind of flipped is an example of that, Erin. We would have liked to try more. Again, because of the timing, we ended up going, okay, there's only 2 things we can do. We can do Zoom. Most people know Zoom, or they've used WebEx, so they can do it. And then we went, okay, we're not going to get a lot of posters on Padlet because it's not hugely known, but we ended up with 10 submissions. And it's enough for us to show that Padlet could be viable for digital posters.
So I just clicked on the Padlet link so we can at least show that a bit. But anybody who's interested, our website is elearningcolorado.org. And all the links to the materials that we've talked about is available from there, including membership. We are hoping to have a face-to-face conference next April. Current plan is to host that as we have previously up at the Beaver Run Resort, but certainly this has shown us the great value of virtual meetings, and I suspect we will have more in our future, both because of pandemic and because they were successful. Cutting out the commute time to get to a meeting makes a whole lot more people able to come and attend. If there's no further questions, feel free to go and run about your day and grab some lunch. But we're here for any questions.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say it sounds like you had a really, really great conference. I'm sorry I missed it.
We missed you, Cheryl.
I really wanted to come, and yeah, it just wasn't going to happen. And I was like, I can't just attend and not participate like I want.
Next time, okay? Next year.
Sounds so fun. Congratulations. You did a great job.
Thank you. All right. On that note, we're going to stop recording if I can figure out how to stop recording. There we go.